How many devotees here don't have a cough? Wow. About 50%, kind of what I guessed. When we discussed this morning about Ram, Lakshman and Sita's visit to the ashram of Atri Muni in Anasuya, I should have mentioned, but I'll mention. It's kind of obvious, but it happens later because we haven't even yet had Bharata come. But after Bharata, Chitrakuta, the ministers, his mothers, half of the entire Ayodhya had come. Ram was feeling very heavy in his heart. Valmiki Ramayana says, he who is a transcendental emotion. And he also noticed that many sages were packing up and leaving Chitrakuta. So he asked them, why is everybody leaving? Why are you leaving? And the sage said, ever since you have been residing here in Chitrakuta, the younger brother of Ravana, named Kara, who has an outpost of Ravana's kingdom in Janmashtami, not so far away. He's been increasing his disturbances of the sages. These Rakshasas, they have the power to make themselves invisible. They go inside the ashram of the sages invisibly and kill them, or when they're performing yagyas, they suddenly break the yagya pot and the utensils go flying in the air, and it's such a disturbance. So I and a number of other fellow sages, we're all going to be going to another ashram that's not so far away. So these two factors were weighing, according to Valmiki Ramayana. Can you do something with the noise that's coming from over there? So Ram decided to depart, and the first place he went to, it hasn't happened yet in the course of our narration, but it's nearby, and so we're discussing. He went to the ashram of Atri Muni. There's some details that are very nice. Atri Muni was very proud in a good sense, proud of his illustrious wife, and so Ram introduced himself, Lakshman, and Sita, one by one. Atri introduced himself and then introduced his illustrious wife and indicated to his wife, Anasuya, that please make Sita feel welcome. Then Atri started describing some of the outstanding qualifications of Anasuya. Of course, commonly, just hearing Anasuya's name, she marks the ideal chaste wife in many, many ways. But he gives some particulars. When there was a drought for 10 years, Anasuya, by her austerities, she was able to produce edibles from the offerings, although there was no rain. And then for 10,000 years, Anasuya underwent very difficult austerities so that there would be no difficulty in this area for the performance of sacrifices and the activities of the sages. And then he mentioned that for the pleasure of the gods, Anasuya arranged for 10 celestial days and nights to be consolidated into one. I mean, that's... So the detail is that Anasuya had a friend, and her friend's name was Shandili, and it doesn't give the explanation of why, but Kandavya Muni uttered a curse to Shandili that her husband would die within 10 days. So Shandili went to Anasuya, told her the bad news. Anasuya made a counter curse. Then there will be no more dawns. You can't have a passage of 10 days if there isn't a passage of day and night, so there will be no more dawns. And by the strength of her austerity, so it was. So the gods came to Anasuya and said, "You're a Brahmani, a great powerful Brahmani. What you have said can't be changed, but can you fix the problem? Because we have to have day and nights. We're here to regulate the universe." So to satisfy the gods and at the same time to protect Shandili from the curse of Mandavya, she consolidated 10 celestial days into one. So, very, very powerful. Then Ram, hearing this amazing introduction to Anasuya's qualifications, he said to Sita, "You go and pay your respects and hear from her." So there's the Brahmani and there's the Kshatriya's wife. Go hear from her. So in a very respectful way, Sita went and heard. And the initial primary long section in Valmiki Ramayana is Anasuya extolling the virtue of the wife's position with the husband. And specifically she remarked, as did Kaushalya, now that your husband is in the forest by the indication of his father, don't let your submission to him slacken, don't become indifferent to him or judge him, or let your faithfulness be unwavering. And she went on and on. She listened, and when Anasuya was finished, she smiled, and she said, "Everything that you have said is exactly as Kaushalya advised me before I departed into the forest, and before I departed from my home. My mother gave me similar instructions in detail what my duties as a wife are. Now hearing this from you, it's just wonderful. Everything is now confirmed, and there would never be any thought, contemplation, even for a moment within my mind, of anything other." So she spoke in such a way that Anasuya was very pleased. And a very interesting thing happened. Anasuya said, "Through the tens of thousands of years of austerities and sacrifices, I've accumulated vast merit, piety, sukriti. So I request you, please take from me some boon." And Sita was surprised, and she said, "All my needs are taken care of." She didn't say no. She just, "All my needs are taken care of." So then Anasuya volunteered what she wanted to give, and she said, "I have celestial items for ladies. A celestial garland that will never become old, it will remain ever fresh. Celestial garments, celestial ornaments, celestial cosmetics." She didn't use the word cosmetic. Ointments, and I wish to give them to you. Sita didn't say, "No thanks, I really don't, my needs are taken care of." She already said, "My needs are taken care of. Everything I need is there." But it was a transcendental gift, a kind of gift that meant something to Anasuya. So very graciously, Sita accepted, and she attired herself accordingly right in front of Anasuya, so Anasuya could see that she had warmly accepted her gift. And then Sita went back to show Ram, just see the magnanimity of Anasuya. Ram was very, very pleased by the capacity of Anasuya to be so kind in her ordinary dealings with people in general. You can say ordinary dealings, just greeting someone that comes to visit you. And then after spending the night, they moved on. So that was a little follow-up from this morning on visiting the ashram of Atri and Anasuya. Very nice exchange. Now continuing the narration that Ayodhya Kanda left us, we heard that Bharata, it took a month, but Bharata's request was that a road be built from Ayodhya into the forest. Apparently the road went all the way to the Ganga. Took several days, so the journey began, and we now find ourselves at Sringhaverapura, or near it, the capital city of Guha and his tribal people. When Bharata and Chitrakuta reached there, he immediately got down from his chariot, prostrated himself before the Ganga, and Ganges water to the Ganges and said his prayers to the Ganges. From a distance, Guha was observing with thousands of his tribesmen, and Guha spoke to them, saying, I can see from the flag on the chariot, this is the Ikshvaku dynasty that has come. This must be the brother of Ram, who is to become the king. If he's come with evil intention, then he'll want to either murder us or do some harm. But if he's come with good intention, because there's Bharata with a whole army, if he's come with good intention, we'll help him cross Ganga. Then Sumantra speaks, because Sumantra has already met Guha, and he sees Guha at a distance and says to Bharata, there's Guha. He's elder, but he's very dear friend of your brother Ram. And because he lives in the forest, surely he'll know the whereabouts of Ram. Let us invite him to come and speak. Oh, Bharata agrees, yes. Please make that arrangement. So Guha comes with proper hospitality. Although he's a forest dweller, he has the culture of how to receive somebody. So he has just items that are gathered in the forest, grains that grow wild, and wild fruits and roots, some of them fresh, some of them dried, some honey, and invites Bharata. The words are different. To Ram, he said, the kingdom is yours. To Bharata, he said, please enjoy our hospitality. We'd like to feed you a very nice meal and take care of everything for you, and so you can rest peacefully and carry on in your journey tomorrow. So Bharata could understand the mood of Guha, that he was considering himself a devotee of Ram and very dear to Ram and very affectionate towards Ram. So Bharata pointed to the other side of the Ganga, and he said, I heard from Sumantra that from here Ram and Lakshman and Sita went towards the hermitage of Bharadwaj Muni. So could you give us some advice? Should we try to cross the Ganga here, or should we go along the side of the Sarayu river? And Guha said, when I saw your big army, I had trepidation, I had worry, I had concern. Have you come with some intent to harm Ram? And here comes the burden of infamy that goes to Bharat for something he didn't do, something that his mother did, but he expressed the opposite to Guha. That Ram is my worshipable Lord, Master. In the absence of my father, he is now my father. He is my Lord and Master. There is no way that I could consider bringing harm to him. Rather the opposite. My evil-minded mother, who was at some distance in the whole entourage, my evil-minded mother conspired for that I should have the kingdom instead of Ram, but I am dedicated to bring Ram back to Ayodhya and serve at his feet as Ram rules the kingdom of Ayodhya. There's nothing else in my heart. And Guha could understand his sincerity. And Guha said these very appropriate, very nice words. I see no one on the face of the earth equal to you, who wish to relinquish a kingdom achieved without any effort. Certainly lasting fame and great honor will come to you for all time. Then comes a section that's very much filled with rasa, similar to a mood that's described in Antya Lila of Chaitanya Mahaprabhu's ecstatic love. Krishnadas Kaviraj describes the way of ecstatic love is very difficult to understand. He's describing the moods and the speech and the activities of Chaitanya Mahaprabhu towards the final days in Jagannath Puri. So Bharata is doing like that also. His body is burning with sorrow. And the sorrow was the death of his father, and now it's the exile of his son, his elder brother Ram, sent to the forest wearing tree bark and living the life of an ascetic when he's a royal king. He should be ruling the world. So his body began perspiring, and his limbs were trembling. And it's not ordinary, it's ecstatic devotion. Seeing that condition of Bharata, Guha tried to console him. And he described how Lakshmana and he spent the night when Ram was resting and guarding Sita and Ram throughout the whole night. Then the next morning, when Ram awoke, Ram requested Guha to take a certain sap from the tree and make dreadlocks. That's how it's translated. Make his hair matted and coiled up on the top like a forest ascetic. And Guha's intention was consoling, but it turned the opposite. When he heard that physical condition that Ram is now attiring himself, Bharata's sorrow spiked even further. He was so disturbed. As he was hearing this narration from Guha, he fell to the ground, and fortunately Chitrakuta caught him before he fell to the ground. This is a ecstatic emotion. If you read in Nectar Devotion, here it is. Sorrow leading to ecstasy. We discussed it. And by the way, I captured all those messages from the fifth wave of the southern division of Bhakti Rasamrita Sindhu and highlighted the parts that are pertinent to this whole message, and you'll be receiving it shortly if you registered. Then Ram wants to know details. Where did Ram rest for the night? Where did Lakshmana rest for the night? Show me the exact spot. What did Ram eat? What were his words? Guha said he only drank water. And the spot that they laid down was over there, and some of the kusa grass was still in that spot. And Bharata began weeping and weeping. Just to think of Sita and Ram lying on the ground on top of grass. When the morning broke, Guha had 500 boats. Although he's a tribal person, he seemed to have resources. 500 boats to help the army cross, and his own personal special boat to assist the royal family, the queens and ministers and Bharata and Chitrakuta to cross to the other side of the Ganges. So this burden of infamy was met when meeting Guha. Then it comes again, a little differently, with approaching the ashram of Bharadwaj Muni. Some of the assistants of Guha accompanied Bharata to help him navigate his way to Bharadwaj Muni's ashram. And when they got near the ashram, Bharata changed his clothing to very simple cotton cloth. Instead of wearing his royal attire and weapons, he left all that behind. And along with his ministers and his brother, they were brought before Bharadwaj Muni's ashram. Bharadwaj Muni, when he was told that they've come, immediately he rose. He was very happy to see them. In an appropriate manner, he embraced Vasishtha, and Bharata was at his feet, offering his respects. Bharadwaj Muni inquired about the affairs in Ayodhya, and they inquired about his affairs, his yajnas, his disciples, the forest animals, the deer and the birds, and the how's everything? That question. Hi Prabhu, how's everything? Like that. So after that exchange, then Bharadwaj inquired, you were to become the king, the sole proprietor of the sovereignty of the whole kingdom of Ayodhya. And here you come. Have you come with some intention to bring harm to Ram? Here we go again. The infamy created by his mother is now on his head, and he has to bear it. So he spoke briefly in such a way that Bharadwaj Muni could understand that he had no knowledge at all of his mother's plan. He would never accept the kingdom on behalf of his mother. Ram should be the king. He's come to the forest to bring Ram back to Ayodhya. That's his mood, that's his intention, because his intentions are being questioned. Then Bharadwaj said, actually I knew, because of my Brahminical power, I knew. But I asked the question so that your resolve could become strengthened, and so that your glory can be further spread. Yes, I can tell you where Ram is. I directed him to go to Chitrakuta, a wonderful mountain 20 miles distant. But you're here in the evening. Let me offer my hospitality to you and the army. And Bharata said, you're a forest dweller, and we should not impose upon you. He said, no, I insist. You don't know the power of mantras. So he uttered some, there's a long section where he uttered some mantras. Gods appeared, and they, in a 20-mile radius, made a big festival. All the land was leveled, and big this and that. buildings and music and prasadam and festivities and celestial garlands and fragrances, and it was the heaven had descended just by the power of Bhardraj Muni's mantras. And it went on through the night. And in the next morning, when everyone awoke, everything was back to the way it was before that evening, except there were still some celestial garlands lying around here and there. So it wasn't just like a dream, just the power of Bhardraj Muni, brahminical power. And so Bharata, the next morning, set out on his journey, following very carefully the directions that Bhardraj Muni had given, similar to the directions that Bhardraj Muni had given to Ram. And in due course of time, they approached the Chitrakuta mountain. And it's a retelling very similarly of what Ram saw from a distance, this mountain appearing like a blue cloud on the horizon, marked with various colors of red and yellow and silver and deep green, colors of flowering trees, along the side of the Mandakini River on the north side of the Chitrakuta mountain. Bharat's comment is, this looks like a pathway to heaven. Very, very serene, very wonderful, very suitable place for Ram to be. They saw here and there the animals, such detail. Just spend a little bit of time. Way back to the beginning, when Lord Brahma instructed Valmiki to compose Ramayana, he said, I'll give you the power of seeing, actually experiencing all of the pastimes. And you will even understand the mind, whether the words are spoken or not, the mind and the feelings of all the personalities in this feature of Ramayana. And so, the pastimes of Ram. And so, it's when Lava and Kusha were narrating, people said, we feel that we're there. Although this took place long ago, we're experiencing it as if we're present also. And so it's detail and detail, detail and detail. But the Ramayana, it's music, it's sung, but there's detail and detail. So just some of the detail of the deer that had unique markings on their back that looked like rainbow colors, and unique sounds of birds, the names of the birds and the sounds of the birds sounded like music. It seemed, Ram's going to say it again, but it seems like this is heaven on earth. Very suitable place for ascetics to come, and the sacred river of the Mandakini for the sages to bathe. And so Bharat starts making a plan. Guha was with him. I see in the distance a place where there's smoke rising. That may be the place where Ram is residing. It may be another sage and ascetic. But Guha, you go this way and I'll go that way, and I'll never find peace until I can see Ram, I can see Lakshman, and I can see Sita I'll never find peace until Ram comes back, becomes the king of Ayodhya, and I'll be assisting him happily and faithfully. Then the scene changes where Ram and Sita are seated outside their cottage, the cottage that was built by Lakshmana. He had these skills. A very nice place. And they're looking out from their ashram towards the same Chitrakuta mountain, and once again describing the colors and the animals. And down below is the Mandakini and sages with their arms upraised, making offerings to the sun god. And the sweet sounds and the fragrances of the flowering trees. Ram is looking out and commenting all these things to Sita and saying, upon seeing this pleasant mountain, Chitrakuta, neither sorrow for the loss of the kingdom, so he's very happy. The others are quite unhappy, he's very happy. No sorrow for the loss of the kingdom, nor feelings of separation from my family and friends. In fact, this place is finer than heaven. I'll happily spend 14 summers here in Chitrakuta. And Sita makes similar comments in response. She comments, she didn't say, I really didn't like Ayodhya anyways. She says, I've always liked living in the country, and I find myself very, very happy here, what to speak of, with just you and Lakshman. Such an idyllic place. I'm also perfectly happy and contented. Then Ram indicates, soon we should take our midday bath in the Mandakini, and they see the scene looking out the Mandakini river. Ram sees Lakshman and says, here's my beloved brother who loves me more dearly than his own life. With his powerful arms and weapons, he's ready to protect us. How could I even think of something so delightful, even in Ayodhya? So as they're speaking like this, so it's quite a different mood than Bharata's mood. It's a mood of levity and joy. By the way, I read again just this morning that little section from Sthayi Bhava and describing the impact of sorrow. And there, in the science of rasa, when sorrow is amplified by further separation or obstacle in meeting the object, then sorrow spikes and increases. But when this feeling of sorrow is met with some pleasant news, like this description here, the bliss also spikes and goes very high. It's just a science of rasa. So that's what they're experiencing, this increased, heightened happiness, even more so than when they were in Ayodhya. So then the mood changes. Ram sees at the distance a cloud of dust in the distance. He sees the animals are running as if frightened in different directions. He hears a very loud sound. It's the rambling of the chariots and the elephants and the horses and the infantry and the armies approaching. He hears the sound getting louder and louder. So he turns to Lakshman and says, Lakshman, See over there? You hear that sound? Climb a tree and see if you can identify what it is that's making all this dust and noise and frightening the animals. Lakshman climbs a tree and calls out, "Find a cave for Sita. We should stand ready with our armor and weapons to do battle. It's an army approaching." He's very chivalrous. Ram calmly says, "Can you just see what is the flag on top of each of the chariots? You can see from a distance. It is the flag of the Ikshvaku dynasty." So Lakshman draws his conclusions. Bharata has come with an army. He's not satisfied having sovereignty of the kingdom. He wants to come and harm you and me. I can't wait to see the face of Bharata, who's, because of him, you're here in the forest living as an ascetic. If he comes as an enemy, I will kill him. Just give me the word. Fortunately, Ram says better intelligence. And Ram says some very nice things. They're each distinct, but they're important. He said, what's the use of a bow and a sword when Bharata has come to see me personally? Then he says, I've taken a vow to fulfill the order of my father. And then he says, so if Bharata were to be killed and the vow that I've taken won't be fulfilled in some unjust deed, how can I do that? I might as well drink poison. He then says, for me to conquer the whole earth, surrounded by its various oceans, would be not difficult at all. But what would be the use of the spoils gained by that victory if you or Bharata or Chitrakuta were absent? I would rather burn those spoils in a big blazing fire. What would be the use? Then he says, I think Bharata is coming with a different mission. When he returned to Ayodhya, he understood the intrigue, and he's come to personally request that I return to Ayodhya. This is the nature of Bharata. He would not harm us even in his mind. Then he kind of gets under Lakshman's skin. But what offense has Bharata done to you that makes you fear him in this way? Don't speak any harsh words to Bharata, because if you speak harsh words to Bharata, you're speaking harsh words to me, and that will be the end. He said, if you're really anxious to have the kingdom, just say so. And I'll speak to Bharata and he'll gladly turn the kingdom over to you. Now, Lakshman is calmed down and humiliated both, and apologizes for speaking this way. Back down at the base of the Chitrakuta mountain, Bharata is making his plan. According to Valmiki Ramayana, the army takes up 12 miles of land. And Bharata is concerned that the ashram, wherever it is that Ram is residing, should not be trampled or harmed in any way by the army as they're proceeding. So he tells the army, you stay here. I'll go this way. Guha can go that way, and we'll find Ram. And when we find Ram, we'll send message to you. It specifically says in this section why he brought a big army. It's to impress Ramchandra that the whole of Ayodhya, the whole force of Ayodhya, and not just the army, but so many citizens of all descriptions, they've come to appeal to you, please return. So the army continues setting up camp. Bharata proceeds, and in different ways, he sees different signs indicating he's getting closer and closer and closer. And tomorrow morning, we'll hear what happens when Bharata sees Ram and Sita. He sees them before Ram sees him. And he calls out, Ram, Sita, Lakshman, and starts running and losing his footing even though it's level ground, and falls to the ground and cries. This ecstatic mood, not, some melodrama of something. This is worldly emotion, is a reflection of transcendental emotion. And we're being privileged, compliments of Valmiki Muni, to hear, as it happened, the transcendental motion of the personality of Godhead and his associates, his expansions, and their loving exchanges, and the display of rasa in its highest sense. This back to the theme here. We're being given an opportunity through this Valmiki Ramayana and visiting the places of Ram's pastimes to gain a more, not just notional, but real sense of shelter of the Supreme Personality of Godhead. These narrations, although we're trying to be devotees, we're actually quite ordinary, but the messages themselves are filled with potency because they're the realizations of Valmiki under the instruction of Lord Brahma, by the desire of Lord Vishnu himself, for Valmiki to be the one to do this. And as we've said it several times, he's received mercy, and he is distributing that mercy. So, however we're in the trajectory of our spiritual evolution, whatever our position may be, the potency of these messages is available. So it's important not just to capture the details of this happened and then that happened and then the other thing happened, but this is stimulating ecstatic love. As they're experiencing ecstatic love, hearing about it in the proper frame of mind helps us also stimulate our ecstatic love and feel the sense of protection and shelter. Even as our worldly life unfolds, difficulties. There's no such thing. There's different ways of saying this. Is there anybody here that has never experienced difficulty? Or there's no such thing as a life that doesn't have difficulty. We all have a life of difficulty in different degrees, at different times, in different ways. And how do we navigate our way as trying to be devotees to stay on track with devotion to Krishna despite the difficulties? So we're hearing these narrations are helping us to stay on track. And that on track means we're at the lotus feet of the personality of Godhead, very clearly striving for, aspiring for His shelter. These messages help us. And visiting the places where these pastimes occurred brings special potency or auspiciousness to this effort. That's why we're here. So we're going to stop there.